This is a short video to explain the basics of feudalism in the Middle Ages in European nation-states. Feudalism during the Middle Ages in Europe was from around the 8th century AD to the 15th century AD. Feudalism was a political and economic system in which control of the land was the main source of power. Feudalism political systems are made up of the people, practices, and institutions that use power to make and enforce decisions. There was a division of power in this society. This division of power is made up of 4 levels. At the top of level was the king. He was the leader of the entire kingdom. At the second level was the feudal lords, known as noble lords or the barons. These were the wealthiest landowners. At the third level were the knights or vassals. They were the fighting knights or warriors. They were skilled warriors that fought battles while riding horses. At the fourth level were the peasants or serfs. They were the poorest people. They were the most members of society and made up the largest members of the population. They were farmers that worked the land and tended to the animals and crops. This model became known as the feudal pyramid. The kings struggled to rule their kingdoms by themselves due to wars in the Middle Ages. Europe was unsettled and weak due to invasions. The kings decided to divide up their land as a matter of security by giving some of their land to noblemen. In doing this, they would not have to protect such a large area alone. This would strengthen their kingdom, and it would be harder for people to invade their nation state. The system of feudalism arose as a matter of security for those European kings. Feudalism worked through an exchange of land for protection, money, and food. In this system of the feudalism, the king would keep a very large portion of the land for himself. This would include his palace and his hunting forest. The rest of the kingdom would be divided between noblemen based on their ties to the king and their family status. Noblemen kept some of the land for themselves and divided the rest of the land among knights whom they chose for protection. The knights were given land under the condition that they were loyal to the noblemen, known as lords, and they would fight in battles when they were needed. This was an example of an exchange of land for labor in the form of protection and military service. The knights would give some of their land to the peasants in exchange for their labor and food. The peasants then became joint property to the land and could not leave. The peasants worked the land for food, protection, and shelter. This was an example of land for food and labor. The role of the nobleman in the feudal system was for building up an army, providing knights for the king, and to be loyal to the king and give money to the king in exchange for land. The king benefited the most from the feudal system. The king was on the top of the feudal pyramid in the feudal system. All the king had to do was to share some of his land. In exchange, he would receive food, knights, military protection, and money. This strengthened the kingdom and helped the king remain in power. On the flow chart, you can see the exchange of land for protection, money, and food. On the right side of the flow chart, there is granting of land to people of lower social status in the feudal system pyramid. On the left side of the flow chart, see what is being exchanged for giving of land. On the bottom level of the chart, we see the serfs or peasants given land from the knights to work the land, grow food, and tend to the animals. They provide food for the entire kingdom in exchange for protection from the knights. On level 3 of the chart, we will see the knights are given land from the nobles in exchange for their military service and protection for the nobles and their land. On level 2 of the chart, we see the nobles are given land from the king in exchange for their loyalty, knights, army, food, and money. On the top of the chart, we see the king gave land to the nobles in exchange for their loyalty, knights, army, food, and money, which made the kingdom strong. As the kingdom grew stronger, it developed an economic system. This system was called manorial system because it was built around large estates called manors. Feudalism formed the development of European monarchy and nation states, which included feudal relationships of kings, noblemen, knights, the daily lives of peasants and serfs, and the economy was known as the manorial system.